today I'm going to give you instructions on the cycles of matter diagrams that we're going to be doing today and tomorrow in class. You're going to get a double-sided sheet that has some instructions on it. So it'll tell you what you need. And there's the back. And you're also going to get a rubric, which we'll go over later in the video. The rubric will tell you exactly where your 25 points are going to be coming from. So for this, you're going to need a black marker, either one of the Crayola ones or a Sharpie marker if you have one. You're going to need a ruler, which I have available. You're going to need pencil that's sharpened. You know where the sharpener is. And you're going to need a 12 by 18 sheet of drawing paper, which again, I'll have provided to you. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the instructions for folding the paper so that you end up with the paper sectioned off correctly to do the assignment. So on this paper, we are going to need space to put each of the diagrams, which is the water cycle, the carbon cycle, and the nitrogen cycle. Then you need space on the side to do each question that will be asked about each cycle. And you're going to have a small area on the left side where you're going to put your title, which will be cycles of matter, and then your name and period and the date. So let me show you how we're going to fold it. First of all, we're going to take and we're going to fold it into thirds. So sort of like if you had a normal size letter, you'd fold it to put it in an envelope. So you're going to come up about halfway here and then come up this way so that you end up with almost like a brochure style piece of paper. So in thirds, okay? If you have trouble with that, ask a neighbor or ask me, raise your hand, okay? Now once you have it folded in thirds, you're going to take and you're going to fold one side about an inch. So it looks a little bit like that. It doesn't need to be perfect, all right? And then on the other side, about 2 inches, you're going to fold it down. So you're going to have this piece of paper that looks a little bit like that when it's all folded. And when you unfold it, it will have these markings on it. This is going to help you to separate the paper, okay? So right now, it's not as easy to see, but you have this thin section on this side. You have 1, 2, 3 areas where you can put your diagrams, and 1, 2, 3 areas, smaller areas where you can answer the questions on the other side. So once you have it folded, you're going to take your black marker and your ruler and you are going to draw lines. So my suggestion is to start with the 1 inch section, which is going to be on the left side. You're going to draw a line that separates that 1 inch section from the rest of the diagram or from the rest of the paper. So put your ruler down because you really want to make this a straight line. And even though you folded it, the fold is just a guide. It's not going to, allow you to make a perfectly straight line. So use a ruler. It'll look a lot nicer and neater that way. Okay, so that's going to give you that thin section on the left side. What we're going to do with that is we're going to put our title, which we're going to do right now, and then below that you're going to put your name, period, and date. So running down the side, now some people do it, they write it sideways like cycles, or I like to do it up and down. So I do it this way, but you can do it either way as long as it is in this section of the diagram. So cycles of matter. That should leave you with just enough space at the bottom to write your name neatly and the period. I didn't leave enough space to write the date, but if you do, write your date down there. Okay, now we're going to draw the lines to separate the 3 major sections. So do not draw into that left area where you have written the title. So you're going to draw across the page this way. So there's 1. And then 2 lines will do it. So now you've got 3 separate areas. You're going to draw the water cycle, the carbon cycle, and the nitrogen cycle here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and label those. You should also. So up in this part, you are going to draw the water cycle. In the next box down is going to be the carbon cycle. And in the last box down is going to be the nitrogen cycle. Now, we are going to take our ruler and we are going to draw a line down this last fold here. And this is going to separate where we draw our pictures from where we answer the questions about each cycle. Because you're going to be given one question about each cycle that needs to be answered, and it's going to get answered in this section. So you can number it 1, and then this will be question 2, and this will be question 3. So this question here will be about the water cycle, this question will be about the carbon cycle, and this question will be about the nitrogen cycle. So now that you have everything folded and drawn out, your sheet of paper should look like this. Now, because it would take too much time for me to actually sit here and draw the whole thing, I'm just going to show you a couple of examples that I have from previous years. And of course, I've fit these onto an 8.5 by 11 sheet to print them. But you can see here how they've drawn the water cycle, they've drawn the carbon cycle, and they've drawn the nitrogen cycle. It's colored and neatly done. They may not have been an artist, but they did a good job. And then over on this side, they've answered the questions that I have asked them to answer. So here's another example. Some of these came right out of your book, so you can go right to section 2-1 and copy the pictures there. And some kids looked on the internet using their iPad and found other ones that they liked better, or they made them up from their own mind by looking at the book. So you can get your book out or get your iPads out, and you can draw these pictures as you would like to draw. So in the first block, you're going to draw the water cycle. Make sure, I would start with pencil before you color. Don't start with the markers or colored pencils. But the water cycle, remember, has so you could start with the clouds here. Precipitation, so you'd want to label that. So rain is precipitation. And then you would draw an arrow, and you're going to want to show runoff. So a lot of kids will draw a mountain because they can show the water runs down the mountain, and that's runoff. So etc. You're going to keep going all the way back through the cycle, then you're going to color it. The question that you are going to answer is this question, which will be on your sheet here. So it says, in the top section, you will draw a diagram of the water cycle. You may reference any figure that you find in your book or on the internet. Make sure it's colored and labeled correctly. The labels should include these words: condensation, evaporation, runoff, groundwater, transpiration, and precipitation. Then on the right side of the diagram, describe what is happening as water moves through the cycle. So a real short example here. If you start with precipitation, what you're going to write over here is the clouds get heavy with precipitation, the rain falls to the ground, it then goes back to the ocean as runoff. Then when it's in the ocean, what happens? And then, include all the words that are in the labels. So basically you're just describing the path that the water takes as it moves the whole way through the water cycle. That goes over here, okay? Now in the middle, you'll draw the carbon cycle. So it says, you may reference any figure in your book or found on the internet. Make sure it is colored and labeled. Labels should include combustion, photosynthesis, respiration, decomposition, fossil fuels, and carbon dioxide. Those are all included in the carbon cycle. Most of those are processes in the carbon cycle. And then on the right side of the diagram, so over in this section right here, you should explain why the carbon cycle is important to living things. Why do we need carbon to survive? Okay. Now in the bottom section, you are going to draw the nitrogen cycle. So you can again reference any figure in your book that is pertaining to the nitrogen cycle, or anything found on the internet. If you like a diagram that's better on the internet, that's fine. Make sure that it's colored and labeled correctly. Include the labels nitrogen fixation by lightning, decomposition, nitrogen fixation by bacteria, nitrogen in the air, plant and animal intake. And then on the right side of the diagram, so over here in this section, you will answer the question or explain why nitrogen fixation is important in the nitrogen cycle. So why is nitrogen fixation important in the nitrogen cycle? Now, once you have that finished, once it's all colored and neatly done and labeled, again, it's going to look like one of these. Okay, so again, the water cycle, carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, it's going to be colored, neatly done, and it's going to have the answers over here on this side. You will turn it into me, and you are going to tape the rubric to the back. So it will look like this. So when you turn it in, it will also have your name and period number, and I'm going to go through, and as I grade your diagram, I'm going to look and check off each of these. There's 25 things here, and if all 25 are checked off, you get 25 out of 25. If any of them are not checked off, they will be subtracted from 25, and that will be your score. So title, did you follow the directions? We did the title together. That should be an easy point, okay? Did you include your name? Again, that should be an easy point. Did you include your class period? That should be another easy point. We did all those together, okay? Then for the water cycle, did you follow directions? So did you do both questions, put the water cycle in the correct space, and did you color and label everything? So if you follow directions, that should be a point, okay? Then did you have the title, which again, we did that together, so that should be an easy point. Did you color it? That's 1 point for coloring. Is it neatly done? Another point for coloring it. Is it correctly represented? So does it go in the correct order? So the same order as the book or on a diagram that you found in the on the internet, they should all be the same because it goes in the same order no matter what. Did you label each part? And is it correctly described in the question? So did you follow where water goes through and did you describe it in the correct way? Okay, so, and then it will move on to the carbon cycle. Did you follow directions? Did you include a title? Is it colored, neatly done? Is it correctly represented? Did you label each part? And did you correctly answer the question? Why is carbon important to living things? Okay, and then the nitrogen cycle. Did you follow directions? Did you include the title? Again, which we did together on this video. Is it colored? Is it neatly done? Is it correctly represented like in the book? Did you label each part correctly? Did you answer the question correctly? Why is nitrogen fixation important in the nitrogen cycle? And overall, is it neatly done and is it colorful? So you're going to get just 1 point for the overall look of the paper. So you'll get that back then and it will have your score at the bottom. If you have any questions, you need to ask me or send me a message through Schoology. And I'm going to give you the rest of the period to work on that and you'll have time again tomorrow in class.